Oscar Dominguez, from the director of the Contra Costa Small Business Development Center, friend of mine and a great leader of that agency. Thank you for coming. And Suzanne Psara, the director of the Contra Costa Green Business Program. Thank you for joining us. And we have Travis Curran. We also have Suzanne Harris. And we also have Alli. Oh, no, you're Suzanne. Okay. And Alli, how do you pronounce your last name? Cecchini. Great. Okay. And the reason why we're doing this segment is to really showcase businesses that are pioneers and leaders and exemplary examples of businesses who have made a decision to operate more sustainably. With that, I'll turn it over to you guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. So this is really a panel discussion, so we're going to ask our panelists to please come up on the stage. And so Susan and I are going to talk just a little bit about our programs. We have to take advantage of the shameless plug opportunity. My brain's still swimming about all this, sort of these abstract concepts. So we're going to try to make this a little bit more concrete, talk a little bit more about sort of more traditional business. But I want to talk a little bit about the Small Business Development Center, or the SBDC, as many of you guys might know us. So full disclosure, again, I'm another county employee. Our SBDC is hosted by the County of Contra Costa. We're embedded within the Workforce Development Board. Mark alluded to the Workforce Board earlier in the program. So Workforce Board is not here, so I'm actually representing both organizations, the SBDC and Workforce Board. The truth is that we really are a little behind the curve when it comes to most of these topics. There really has to be some political will at every level. We're federally funded primarily, and while we definitely work closely with our programs like Jody's and of course our Green Business Program, there's definitely a lot of room to do much more. And I want to thank Oren. I'm sure he's still in the room, for pushing me a little bit. Thank you, Oren. My goal is to definitely be able to talk about this next year, seeing that we have more integration between our programs. So it's a goal. I appreciate that, Oren. So what we do basically in a nutshell is we provide no cost, free services to people looking to start and grow small businesses here in Contra Costa. We're funded by the Small Business Administration as well as a number of other funders, and we do this through free workshops and through one-on-one advising. We do the advising as much as possible where our clients are. We know this is place-based work. We are headquartered here in Pleasant Hill, but we do cover the entire county. If you're looking for more information, I will be around till at least 5 or so, but you can also check out our website. It's contracostasbdc.org.com, and probably a few others, but feel free to Google us. We do show up at the top. And if you have any questions at all, please let me know. Again, I want to defer my time to Susan and to the panelists. I will be moderating the discussion in just a few minutes, but for now, I'm going to have Susan talk a little bit about her program.
Thank you. I'm just going to really briefly talk about the Contra Costa Green Business Program. I don't know where the clicker is. Is it up there? All right, thank you. Just so that you kind of get an idea of what our program is, since I'm not sure if everybody knows about the nuts and bolts about the program. So backtracking, Contra Costa Green Business Program, I'm in the department, or the Contra Costa Health Services for the county, and I'm a pollution prevention specialist. But the Contra Costa Green Business Program is actually a member of the California Green Business Network, which is funded by mostly through grants. Right now, I think the EPA grant is funding most of us, and then also locally we get partner agency contributions. But the California Green Business Network, there are 27 different green business programs across the state, whether they are in cities or counties, and we meet twice a year to kind of discuss the different program measures and different new innovations or things that we should be implementing in our program. They also develop the standardized checklist that we use to facilitate the green business certifications. So I think it's important to know that this is a statewide standard and it's administered locally, so there's flexibility to kind of tailor it to your own city or county regulations. Right now in Contra Costa County, we have 329 certified green businesses, which is great. we could do better. And over all time, since 2008, I believe, there have been 596 businesses that have been certified in our program. And on an annual basis, we do try as best as we can to calculate measures in greenhouse gas emission diversions. And so one of the metrics that we collect every year, we divert about over 20 million of pounds of CO2 per year. The certification areas focus on pollution prevention, energy conservation, water conservation, transportation, materials management like recycling and solid waste, and really all that kind of comes together also with employee engagement. So we're focusing on making the workplace better for the business, for the customers, for the employees, and then contributing to more livable and healthier communities. And the certification process, really briefly, we have an online database to facilitate the certifications. And so each business that goes in registers, they fill in an application, which is like a checklist, and then we do on-site verifications. And it wouldn't be possible without our program partners. Contra Costa Water District spoke today. They're one of our program partners. So they would do, for example, a water conservation audit for a business. So that's kind of an example of the partnerships that we rely on. And then every 4 years, the business would get recertified. And this is a list of kind of our program partners. We also have partnerships with the cities that help promote our program to the community members and businesses. This is my last slide. I just thought this was interesting. This is actually a survey done statewide. It was a random survey of green businesses, and it was a multiple choice survey, so that's why the percentages don't add up. But the motivation, I think, which is we're trying to hone in on in this panel for sustainability in businesses, what we identified is that a lot of the green businesses became certified green businesses because it was consistent with their own company values, which we thought was very interesting. That's what they thought was the biggest benefit, and then also marketing for a green business. So we'll move on to the businesses, but I'll be around also if anybody has any specific questions.
Thank you, Susan. So what we're going to do now is we're going to have each of the panelists introduce themselves. So Tyler, I think maybe we can start with Travis and with Crestwood. Okay. The stage is yours.
Okay, my name is Travis Curran. I'm the administrator with Crestwood Healing Center, and I'm going to talk for a little bit about how we use cyber money in mental health. Okay, I'm just kidding. I'm not really going to do that. I already forgot what the term was. It's totally not relevant to us. All right, so I am not, mine is probably going to be a little different. I don't work in the environmental industry. I work in behavioral health. Crestwood Healing Center, I'm not great with PowerPoint, and I had to cram a bunch into a limited number of slides, so I'll get to what I can. We are a residential facility for adults with mental health issues. We have 2 different programs, serve up to 80 people living in our facility at any given time, and we have 60 employees. So we have people that experience a wide range of symptoms that are living in our program, anything from anxiety to depression. At times it can range to suicidal thoughts, confusion, lack of motivation, wide variety of challenges that our folks have. So, I think I'm supposed to click this. Okay, if you can't see that, I'll go through all of it. About 2.5, 3 years ago, we were in a spot, as many places in healthcare, where throughout our facility you could find disposable products. Medication cups when people were taking medication 2 to 3 times a day. Disposable napkins, paper towels. We had inefficient sinks, toilets, any kind of water fixtures. Fluorescent lights, old fluorescent lights throughout the building, and attitudes that were more unaware towards any kind of conservation. We had a number of different barriers as we started. Let me back up for a second. So our environmental project started with a conversation with my partner on this project, Chloe Delancey, who brought up a question of, can we start giving people reusable water bottles in this facility to take with medications instead of plastic disposable cups that would likely be grabbed 2 or 3 at a time, filled to the top with water, a little bit of the water drank, and then thrown in the trash and not even recycled. This started a huge facility-wide project for us aimed at how can we become more sustainable as a building. Each of us, as we started this and as we put a team together in the facility, thought we're very environmentally conscious. There's a whole lot that we can do. We see all these different things throughout the day. Through this project, we've learned so much more. I mean, I grew up thinking I was an environmentalist. Throughout this, I've learned I was really only scraping the surface of what I could have done. Now, barriers in our facility started with the fact that most people would not identify themselves as environmentalists. This conference here is fairly affordable, I would say, for all those of us that are here today, and there's space for more people. It's a subset of the population that would probably consider themselves environmentally conscious. So it started with a lot of indifference, natural aversion to change. If you take both people working and living in the mental health system, there are constant changes that people are hit with, so adding one more thing that we're asking people to do, one more large thing in terms of changing environmental practices, created a barrier for us. Financial restrictions, there's not much money in mental health. We scrape by providing everything we can for our people. We didn't have a blueprint for how to do this. Our facility is one of, I think, close to 20 within the Crestwood system throughout the state of California. We are the first facility to take something like this on. Certain organizational restrictions just based on people's time, what my staff are paid to do when they're in the facility, and how we can implement other things throughout the day. Motivation to keep going and change habits. Oh, well, Scott Pruitt came later, but he's always a challenge. Okay, so that's kind of where we were. I'm going to stop myself. I want to go into, anyway, I'm going to stop myself. All right, so what we did as we started this project, we changed any kind of water fixture. We replaced faucet aerators with the help of Contra Costa Water District. We changed shower heads. We identified all leaks that we could. We fixed all toilets to be more efficient. We replaced all of our disposable cups with reusable ones. Now, to do that, we have a commercial kitchen in our facility. We had to create a system where we're making sure that they're washed. We had to make sure that we had enough cups to get people through the day for medications 3 times a day, coordinate with our staff. We stopped using paper napkins altogether and switched to cloth. I'm going to get to some of our numbers in a little bit. Thank you. We started recycling water that was used to rinse vegetables, for example, and use it for irrigation around our facility. We also shut off our irrigation. We started doing monthly shoreline cleanup, so there's a spot designated for us at the Berkeley Marina, taking both our staff and residents out to do that volunteer work. We started a composting program. We stopped the use, or nearly eliminated the use of kitchen trays, or however you would describe them. So if you think you're in Kaiser or somewhere else, or you're at a buffet line, you pick up a tray, you put your food on top of it. Every time we're using those trays, we're running the dishwasher for them 3 meals a day. We started making sure, and we wrote policies about this, that we're double-siding all copies, that we're reusing one-sided paper. People that know me at meetings that I'm at know if they have one-sided paper they no longer need, they just give it to me, I take it back to the facility. We started a number of upcycling projects. One of the coolest ones that we have recently is our activity coordinator takes old wine bottles, takes the labels off of them, has a device that cuts them in half and turns them into planters for succulents around the facility. We switched to reusable hand towels, so all of our residents have their own hand towels in their restroom instead of using paper towels. We went LED throughout the whole facility. Just around the start time of this project, we switched to an electronic medical record, having done everything on paper previously. And one of the biggest things that we did is we did constant education with our staff and our residents, with our whole facility community. We were doing, at the start of this project, we were doing monthly events, lots of prizes. I'm going to get to some of that in a little bit. We added information at our staff meetings, and we were constantly giving people information about how they could easily be more thoughtful about the environment in their daily lives. Okay, so some of our results. By making these changes in about 2.5 years, we've saved 2.5 million gallons of water, also over $10,000 on our water bill, saved over $7,000 on our power bill. By switching to reusable cups, at this point, we've saved almost 200,000 medication cups and over $2,000 with those. Each year, we are now saving 170,000 paper napkins. We have these processes I mentioned, like upcycling, composting, and we have a vocational program in our facility. We created a whole variety of different green jobs for our residents. We got green certified in September of last year. That in February of this year, we were awarded the Pleasant Hill Green Business of the Year award. We won the Cool California Small Business of the Year award, and somebody lied to me and said that we were the all-time greatest environmental leader and that we were going to get that award here today. But that's okay. That's all right. And we have educated, invested staff and clientele. It's not across the board. There's still some people that maybe we have to push a little bit. There's one person that used to work with us that I remember having ongoing conversations, and she just didn't care, and she did not want to make changes. That's okay. That's difficult for us. We want everybody to be on board, but by and large, we have a much more educated, invested group of people, both working and living there. It's a part of our orientation and ongoing training process with staff. So, some thoughts on why this worked for us. In general, I think we have a committed, compassionate team. I think there's some connection between if you're working in healthcare and then therefore caring for other people, it's an easy jump to think that you would have some awareness or some care for the planet. And we have an on-site team that meets weekly and looks at what we can do next for our environmental practices. We've done, as I mentioned, we've done lots of education. This is something that really worked for us. One thing that I believe is very important, having invested facility or organizational leadership, I sit on this team that meets weekly. Chloe and I lead this team. If the leadership at this facility were not on board, it's going to be a lot harder to make all this happen. Constantly giving feedback to our folks, to our staff and residents, presenting it in such a way that it's building pride for people. We have a lot of our folks that are residents that will go and spend time sometimes go home for the holidays or go home for weekends, and we have people that will come back and say, hey, I pushed my family member on this. I told so-and-so that they should use a reusable water bottle instead of a disposable one. Thank you. Okay. We pay a lot of attention to our language. So, and this is combined with the idea of removing alternate options for people. So we were not saying, please use these reusable cups for your medications and having them stacked next to a bunch of disposable options for people. We did not say, please use cloth napkins and then have a paper towel dispenser right next to it. We had to remove those options. We also had to give the message of this is what we are doing, this is who we are. To us, knowing that change is really difficult in general, and for our population it can often be more difficult, we knew going in that we were going to get resistance to some of the changes that we were going to make, and we had to pay attention to our language and describe what we were doing as this is who we are. This is how we are doing things in this facility. We gave constant reminders and continue to about how to conserve, sometimes with a healthy dose of guilt. Again, encouraging people to take their practices beyond the facility to their homes. One thing that always stuck out to me, the first time that we started talking with our staff about this at a staff meeting, the question that we asked was, how many people in here have a bucket in their shower and use it for irrigation around their homes? Okay, yeah, you guys can raise your hand too. We had 2 or 3 people, there were a few of us that raised our hands as far as doing that. A few months later, we asked the same question, it was 2/3 of the room. So we were encouraging people, we know we can make a difference inside the facility, but we were pushing that outside. We've done some education with some of our community partners as well. So this next part is something that I think has been really important for us. This has been either at any event that we've done, specifically at our Earth Day events, that we get really competitive with this. When we were talking about water earlier and the idea of the water district being in a position, I'm sure, of getting a lot of grief about any time rates go up. To me, I think the cost for water should be significantly higher. As a precious resource, why shouldn't we be paying more for it? If there were competitions or some kind of incentives that maybe it was like the tax system. And the more you use, the more you're paying per gallon. And maybe if you're below a certain amount, you don't pay taxes or you don't pay for water at all. Whatever the idea, we're looking at ways at incentivizing change for people. Throughout our organization, we're actually soon starting an organization-wide throughout the state green initiative. And part of that is going to be competitions related to collecting old resources. For example, in our facility, we did a denim drive. The organization we partnered with was called Blue Jeans Go Green. And they take old denim in any condition, and they use it for housing insulation in low-income communities. So what we're looking at doing is getting in competition with other facilities, other organizations about who can collect the most items, clothing, whatever, that might otherwise end up in landfills. Right now, we're through with an organization called One Warm Coat. We're doing a collection drive organization-wide with a goal of collecting 1,000 or more gently used winter coats to help the needy during the winter. Things that could have ended up in the landfill otherwise, or additional coats would have to be produced. So to us, I think competition is really important. How many people in the room would like to make more money? Okay, a few of you, yeah. Some of you are lying. All right. How many of you could, if you chose, look for another job to have more income? You could, right? Why don't you? Anybody, shout something out. Time, energy, all of that, right? So I went through some of these numbers as far as, say it again? Because you believe in what you do. Yeah, so there are some of us that might, and money alone is not enough of an incentive for people that don't really care or more indifferent about the environment. Money's not enough of an incentive to make a change. Because for people that are tired at the end of the day and have to think about, okay, I should shut the water off each time I'm scrubbing a plate before I put it in the dishwasher, it's easier to just leave the sink running. So money alone, knowing, well, I'm going to save a little bit of money here, or I could stop buying these disposable water bottles and I could buy this reusable one, but then every morning I have to remember to fill that up before I take it to work. That little extra bit of effort that people have to put in becomes a barrier for people. So it's ongoing reminders and it's incentivizing it instead of just saying, stop this behavior that you're displaying right now. So for us, incentivizing the behavior has been really important. And obviously, as we all know, conservation is an all-around win. That it affects, the presentation earlier that talked about everything from, women's health and education to, as we know, like air quality, healthcare, environmental consciousness affects all of this. So in giving these messages to our people repeatedly over and over and incentivizing the change, it worked for us. Oh, that's it. Oh yeah, I was limited in terms of slides.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Travis.
Suzanne Harris. I'm Sales and Marketing Manager at Gardeners Guild. We're a full-service landscape contractor in Richmond. I'm going to do a little snapshot here in the first slide about our company. If everybody could rewind their mind for just a second to 1972, for anybody who was around in 1972, well, in my mind, two things happened. The Grateful Dead moved from San Francisco to Marin County, and Gardeners Guild was born. We were obviously a very small company. There were just a few people, and we did residential landscape maintenance. The company began to grow, and a few years later, a woman named Linda Novi joined us. And she is the woman that we consider to be the founder of our company. And she really is, I think, laid the groundwork really for the culture that we have and the sustainable mindset that Gardeners Guild has. So a little bit about us. We're full service. We do both interior and exterior landscape maintenance. We also do irrigation, all facets of water management, including irrigation design, repair, and you name it, we do it, and all facets of landscape construction as well as design. We also have a separate division for integrated pest management. Is anybody familiar with what integrated pest management is? Okay. So it's basically it's using the least toxic practices, and sometimes beneficial insects can control pests. And we also have a sustainable program called Living Solutions. So about Linda Novi, she, as I said, she really laid the groundwork for our culture and created really a culture of ownership, getting people involved. This woman, and I didn't meet her, I got hired a few years after she left the company. She actually, in 1997, what she did was she sold the shares of the company to the employees. And by 2003, we were 100% employee owned. So really, but she laid the groundwork for that in getting people involved in decisions that were being made for the company, and also in promoting people from within. So she created that in terms of knowledge, horticultural knowledge, training in leadership as well as horticulture, irrigation, integrated pest management, and water management. So this little graphic here illustrates a little bit about how we're different. We had, in the mid-1970s, again, flashback to 1970s, we had a severe drought, not unlike the one that we went through a few years ago here in the Bay Area. And Linda could read the tea leaves about that drought, and she was concerned that in future we would have water shortages. So Linda was motivated to get involved. She was an environmentalist also, but it really woke her up in a big way, and she wanted to get Gardeners Guild involved. She also, at that point, they began creating a list of values for Gardeners Guild, which included responsibility for the environment, integrity, and a number of other values. So she got the company involved in, whoops, you know what? I think we want to keep that one. Yeah. Sorry, I don't want to confuse anybody. So anyway, we like to say we walk the talk. After the severe drought, she got the company involved in water conservation programs. So we began educating our clients to water management. In the mid-1980s, we hired an entomologist who came in and taught us about integrated pest management, and that was the beginning of our integrated pest management program. And it just sort of, you know, it grew from there, our sustainable programs, so to speak, and we began to do recycling, reusing in a big way, and the company began getting a lot of awards for that, especially awards, and we were still in Marin County at the time. We're now based in Richmond, but we began to get awards from the Marin Municipal Water District. So this Living Solutions is the name of our sustainable landscape management program. It's kind of like a culmination of all the work that we had done, and really was almost an afterthought because we were doing this really for our clients, but the name made it official. So what we do, and I will tell you that the why about all of this was, starting from Linda, was a concern about protecting the environment, conserving water, and not using chemicals or synthetic products. So we're offering clients now a program that could be completely organic if people want it, and it's a bit of a challenge, even though the economy has changed from 2008 and people now have money. It's still not everybody wants to sign off on the extra money that it'll take, for instance, to do hand weeding instead of using chemicals or synthetic products. And we like to say that Living Solutions is kind of the opposite of the Miracle Grow philosophy, which is feed the plants. You know, and you probably have seen the Miracle Grow ads. You know, you give that to your plants and your flowers will bloom. Well, Living Solutions says that if you feed the soil will get healthier and your plants will in turn get healthier. When you feed the soil, your soil holds water more efficiently, and it also protects your plants against disease. So this program includes worm castings. Is anybody familiar with worm castings? Okay, worm poop. Okay. And compost tea, which is, in essence, worm poop also, microbial inoculants. It also includes water management, which is a whole host of solutions for saving water, which is efficient irrigation, it's an ongoing process, really, and it means constant checking of irrigation, drip irrigation when it's appropriate, and also smart, or what we call weather-based irrigation controllers. People familiar with that? The irrigation controllers are constantly getting upgraded. The company is regularly schooled on the latest and greatest in that. Even in the spray irrigation, there's efficient spray irrigation too. So in addition to water management is mulch. And I know everybody's familiar with mulch. Mulch also can, when it degrades, it also can improve the soil. It also helps the soil to hold water. So this is my last slide. One of the services we also do with clients, because we have a lot of commercial clients in San Francisco, and many of them are either applying for LEED certification or they're reapplying. So what we do is we help them with that. And we'll hold meetings and talk with their lead consultants. But again, I gotta say that this is the broad spectrum of recycling, reusing, and also the landscape management that's more a sustainable solution is an ongoing challenge. And it's a challenge when you go out to the marketplace and you present this idea, which is the right thing to do. That's one of the things reasons why we want to do it. It's not always the greatest moneymaker for us, but we know we're doing the right thing. So, and even internally with recycling, we have to continue to educate people to it. But people are motivated. And I think being an employee-owned company is a little bit of an extra motivator for employees. So I appreciate you all being here and listening. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Suzanne. So the last presentation is First Generation Farmers, and we have Alli joined by Ellie on the stage. So Alli, the stage is yours.
Yes, thank you. So just this one? Yes. Hi, my name is Alli Cecchini. I'm the founder and executive director of First Generation Farmers. I'm also a full-time law student. First Generation Farmers is an educational, nonprofit, non-governmental organization. This is probably not for this audience, but a lot of people find when I tell them we're a nonprofit organization, they kind of take us out of the enterprise category. But nonprofits work in the same way. We did not have any grants or funding to start off with. We were completely financially sustainable for the past 4 years by ourselves until 2 months ago we received a grant. So our mission is to increase community access to healthy, sustainably grown food, to serve as a model for land stewardship, engage people of all ages in a direct farm experience that connects them with the source of their food, and support the next generation of farmers and agripreneurs, which will be mostly what I'm talking about today. So we broke up this presentation into 4 issues that we find with land use. And this also can serve as a model for private landowners and farmers, kind of thinking of the next phase of their farm, that decision to sell to a development or to keep farming, and how to succeed over to the next generation. So one of our issues is food waste, and that was clearly a big topic of discussion today. We have a take what you need, pay what you can model. We are in 8 farmers markets in the Bay Area. We have this model in every farmers market that we're at, including our farm stand at our farm in Brentwood. We find that the waste is considerably less and that we end up making more money than if we do the traditional price model. So we've broken this up into these environmental sustainability, the financial sustainability, and ethical sustainability, because those are what's important to us, and obviously we need to make money. So this is a love equation. The people who can pay more do, and so that the people who can pay less will be able to. The ethical sustainability is pretty much explains itself. When you're at a farmer's market and you have people that are thanking you because they wouldn't be able to eat organic, fresh vegetables, it sings to your heart pretty hard. That's 2 of our customers. That's our sign, which we have over here. It's very dirty. The second issue is farmland conservation. My family's been farming in this area for almost 100 years. We have over 1,100 acres of prime farmland in Discovery Bay. But my parents are in their 80s, their business is failing, and they don't want to farm anymore. And I don't want to farm a monocrop culture farm. So First Generation Farmers was born. And I convinced them to let me put 550 acres into a farmland conservation easement. This is not a very attractive idea for most farmers. You get paid very little money when you could sell it for millions to a developer, but they didn't really have another option. So 3,900 development rights were extinguished. We are right next to Discovery Bay. That is phase 2 of Discovery Bay. 2 billion vehicle miles extinguished. That would have been all the people traveling to and from our farm. The carbon reduction, plus that doesn't take into consideration the carbon sequestration that we do, so we're almost carbon negative. The financial sustainability, farmers do get paid to give up their development rights. While it's not a lot, if you're in a good financial standing, it's still something. And the ethical sustainability is we've dedicated those 550 acres to beginning farmers. Like I said, I do not want to farm 550 acres by myself. So the idea is that we can get 30 to 50 beginning farmers farming that farmland and go into long-term leases. This is the property right here that you can see Discovery Bay. How does this thing work? Discovery Bay is on the left. Ours is the pink, purple piece there. So the other problem, like I said, was monocropping. We developed Urban Edge Sustainable Farmer Program. We just received a $200,000 grant from the USDA to get this program from its pilot level to the next larger level. More farmers, smaller farms, biodiversity, so it sort of eliminates that monocrop issue. The financial sustainability, it's hard for a beginning farmer to get land, know how to farm, and seek help. So we're trying to create this new family farm. First Generation Farmers is that grandparent who can help give input to a beginning farmer and hopefully show them that taking out a loan might not be a great idea if they hate it. You know, it's not the most fun job. You have to love it. So we're hoping even the people who quit our program is a success because they haven't taken out this massive loan to get land. The ethical sustainability, we're devoting 80% of our budget to those from socially disadvantaged backgrounds, including women, people of color, immigrants, and refugees. Currently, we have 7 people signed up for our 2018 season, all from Indian backgrounds. Most of their families were farming in India and have decided they want to get back into that. Here's our little farm. We farm 12 acres, which is like our educational foundation farm where people can test out different mulching ideas, different intercropping, different integrated pest management ideas, mulching, whatnot. So the fourth issue is tractor use and hard labor. This is a tough one because tractors have been in our modern farming such a big part of it. So we use animals as our laborers. All these animals play a significant role in the farm. They can almost entirely eliminate the use of tractors, diesel, and synthetic fertilizers. So our chickens come in and they take up all the weeds, right in the rows. And then our sheep come in and take up the larger weeds. And then at the end of the season, the pigs come in, take up all the roots, rhizomes that are issues. And then the only thing that we need the tractor for is to make our rows again. They're pooping the whole time, which is great. They're eating our organic vegetables. A lot of them are producing milk for our farm and eggs. So it's a win-win. These employees take much lower pay. Their dinner is usually comprised of hays and grades that can be grown on the farm. Plus, they provide us with eggs, milk, honey, and compost. The farm labor gets a bad reputation because of the backbreaking work. So the farm animals are already doing it. We just have them in a better system that's utilizing them and us in a more harmonic way. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Alli. Maybe you guys can hold on to the microphone. And what we're going to do now is, for the remainder of our time, we're going to have a few questions for our panelists, and we're also going to open it up to the audience. So I think generally, there's really no doubt that your values are really intertwined in everything you're doing. So since you're holding the mic, maybe you can talk just a little bit about your personal values and the values of that you bring to first generation farms and how that's really integrated into your business model.
Okay, what was the first question?
So it's really about just values. Just talking more generally about
values.
your values. Yes.
I grew up on this farm. My family's been farming in the area for 100 years. When I left for college, I went to the University of Florida. I realized that I had such a unique experience and that most people didn't have this experience. I grew up on 1,000 acres right on the river, on the Delta, with beautiful sunsets. And when I came home from college, I felt this need from all of my friends to experience that. And I felt like I wanted to share it with the world. And that, like I said, I did not want to put one crop down. For one, it's just not financially sustainable. For two, it doesn't pull at my heartstrings. So that was the reason why I figured if all my friends keep coming, and it was like a few friends, and then it was 20, and then it was thousands of people now coming out, that we could do this together, and this could be a model for other farmers who want to get out but still want to see their land continue farming without, it turning into a park, something that's still producing for the local economy for sustainable food and is, sequestering carbon and doing a lot of those things that we need.
Thank you, Alli. So Suzanne, you brought up the issue of values, and I think that's really definitely intertwined in your business model. Maybe you can speak a little bit to the values of the organization and how, again, that all relates to why you're here today.
Yeah, in terms of values of Gardeners Guild, boy, I wish I could read you the list of our values because there are quite a few of them, but it does boil down to protecting the environment. And I will say, what makes me so proud, this isn't exactly answering your question, but what makes me proud is that the management of the company, and many of these people have been with the company for anywhere from 15 to 35 years. So people definitely do stay there, but people really feel it, I mean, it's embedded in our lives, and we're not perfect about it either. As I said before, it's a challenge, but we walk the talk as much as we can, and if we were able to, we would have everyone get on board with having us maintain their landscape sustainably, because it is the most gratifying, I think, gratifying thing that you can do. And with everything that you hear in the news these days about climate change, what else can you can't not do it, even though there's so much backlash to it. So anyway, hope that answers.
Sure. Thank you, Suzanne. So Travis, how about you? So the question really, again, is about values, but I think in particular with your organization, how does that relate to employee engagement? And the next question is going to be around return on value or return on investment. So maybe you can talk again about how values really help you with that employee engagement piece. You talked about some of the resistance you had when you really implemented these huge sweeping changes. Again, how were the values a big part of that, and how did it help you with the employee engagement piece?
So resistance, actually, I know I mentioned people's hesitation to change. Resistance for us as a facility was much less than I think you would find in other places. And I think some of that relates to the character that we're looking to when we're hiring people. I think our organization's values, as well as some of my own and why I got into behavioral health, relate to providing service and living in a life of service to other people. For me personally, that stretches to living in service to the planet as well. And I feel, and I've always felt, personal responsibility towards not just doing my part to help the planet, but also spreading that, sometimes to the detriment of people around me that get tired of hearing about it. And something that I meant to say before that I think connects to this is that I feel like it's our responsibility, all of us, to speak up whether we are comfortable or not. And I think that can come about in a number of different ways. It can certainly be, the idea of the Board of Supervisors was mentioned earlier. To me, that can also really be if you are asked at the grocery store if you want a bag that you can say no thank you, or you can also say no thank you, please save the resources. You can do the same thing when you are at a restaurant or with to-go boxes or whatever it is, that it's our obligation to say things politely that get people thinking about how resources are being used.
Thank you, Travis. I appreciate that. So one of the things I think is really important as we talk about small business, again, is this sort of idea of the return on the investment. I think all of the organizations have made some significant investments into being much more sustainable in the long term. But maybe you can speak a little bit. You did, and one of your slides, you spoke to some of the return. How did that really compare to the investment? I mean, you saw some of the savings. What kind of return on investment have you seen since you really implemented all these sweeping changes?
I don't have a number for it, and yet, I mean, you saw from whether it was our water savings or our savings of different disposable materials, it was quite large in terms of the return on investment. The biggest cost for us was replacing toilets. There were costs for reusable napkins and cups and that kind of thing, the one-time cost for those items. And I would add to that thankfully my organization was supportive of me just kind of running with this from a financial sense. They're understanding that these are going to be cost-saving measures in the long term. I think for people, and I've thought about this, for people that are not in either a supervisory role or a position to make that kind of change, I think there's a difference between saying, hey, why don't we do this? It's going to save us money long term, and actually doing the legwork for the supervisor or the organization and saying, either can I run with this and then present it to you, or I've found all these different things, click this button right here and you're going to order these and I will create the system for it. The more that we can do the legwork for people in supervisory roles, the better in my mind. And the more likely it's going to happen, as opposed to presenting an idea to somebody that might have, whether that's in government or private industry, presenting an idea that somebody then has to take a number of steps to make happen, or create meetings or committees or whatever else. If you do that legwork, it's more likely the person's going to sign off on it and see that you're taking it seriously.
So you're saying, so at a macro level, it's almost at a micro level where you're sort of maybe giving someone the plastic bottle, or maybe giving them a reminder in the morning to refill the plastic bottle. You make it a little bit easier for them to make those changes.
Right, and we did that kind of thing all the time, whether it was giving out plastic bottles, whether part of our holiday gift for our staff was a reusable Crestwood canvas shopping bag, giving some of those things to people, whether it was a plan or an actual tangible item for people to use.
Brilliant. That's brilliant. So Suzanne, maybe again, you can speak to, you talked about it a little bit, how sometimes some of your customers will opt out of the more sustainable practices. How do you see that the clients that decide to really implement those practices, what kind of return on investment do you see for yourselves and maybe for your customers? Do you hear them talking about, wow, we're really glad that we decided to go with that route rather than going the traditional route and maybe not being as sustainable and our services that we're taking advantage from the Gardeners Guild?
Yeah, how I can answer that is not with numbers. I don't have quantitative information, more anecdotal, but we have. Here's the thing about Living Solutions, the Living Solutions program, is that we have upgraded maybe 30, 40 of our accounts to Living Solutions, and I can say for sure that I know of a number of stories. I mean, I can say stories, awards. There are people who are aware of our reputation from the early 80s from Marin County, when we were sort of a pioneer in water conservation, and so they know us from that. So it's a combination of it's I think encouraged customer loyalty, number one. Number two, it's brought us some new business. And being employee owned, which I think is it's sort of another sustainable way to do business. That's a number three there. So I think that in general, it is a constant education process. I think education really is at the heart of all of this, is when we can educate people and let them know how it can benefit them. And we have done that, by saying, there are definitely publicity benefits when you sign up for that. And there's also the potential that they can get extra lead points for a commercial account. So Yep.
Yeah, it's an ongoing thing. The education is, part of the advocacy, most definitely. So, Alli, maybe you can speak a little bit to, again, sort of this idea of a return on investment. We know we talk about the triple bottom line, but really, where is it that first-generation farmers is seeing some of the return on that, again, significant investment socially, environmentally, and all the others?
Well, part of our beginning farmer training program is they don't have the option to farm conventionally. They have to farm under our sustainable practices. I don't want to call them organic practices because I feel like it's not intensive enough compared to what we do. They have to be having a certain amount of habitat conservation. They have to have a certain amount of carbon sequestration that has nothing to do with their edible crops. Obviously, no chemicals, no synthetic fertilizers. They have to utilize the animal compost before they bring anything extra from the farm that has to travel to our farm. That return is huge because now we've trained 10, 20, 30 farmers. Even if they leave our program, they go somewhere else, they have that foundation. And we hope that continues on. As far as numbers go, not sure how much we save from using our animals. It's got to be a lot because I know farmers, part of their biggest bill is fertilizers. We use a high technology in our drip irrigation system. We only water at night. We have mulch that's covering all of our water. Our water practices are huge, even though we have pre-1914 riparian water rights. We do not get metered. We water straight out of the delta. But we take the highest level of practices with our water conservation.
Thank you. One more question for you. So it sounds like in many ways you're sort of incubating sort of, future farmers. One of the things I read about a few years ago was this challenge around the replacement rate for farmers. You talked about it. A lot of, it's sort of, it's a generational thing. A lot of kids say, I don't want to do that. So it's obvious you guys are doing your part to try to, work on that, that ledger. But maybe you can talk a little bit about that part of your mission and how you're really trying to make sure that we do have someone growing our foods in the future.
Well, the average age of a farmer is 58 or 60, whatever it is. It's high and it's getting higher, and the family farm is falling apart. There's not someone to come in. I am the only one left in my family involved in this business for good reason. It's difficult. And so I don't want to say it's a food security issue, especially after hearing a lot of these presentations about we have way too much food already and we could already feed the world over. But I think it's more of a local food problem or food solution. So creating more small beginning farmers can feed our local communities. We don't have to depend on outsourcing. We don't have to worry as much about these really expensive cold chain structures and facilities that we'll have to build. So I think it's, bottom line, I think could hit a lot of those issues.
Localization you're talking about, really. Yeah, that's beautiful. So I definitely have a question for Suzanne. I know that you're definitely going through a few more sort of evolutions, and I think one of them is a shift to electrical equipment. Maybe you can speak to that just a bit?
Yeah.
Please.
Well, yeah.
Microphone.
Oh. All right. We are, and not with everything, but we are shifting from, is anybody familiar with gas blowers? Just raise your hand. And you find that annoying, I'm assuming. Yes. I live in a neighborhood, a semi-rural area, and there is nothing worse than the sound of a gas blower. And there's a huge difference sound-wise and also environmentally between those and electric or actually battery operated. And so we're in the process actually of, I don't know the whole story, but Makita is the company that makes blowers. Some may be familiar with the company, and we are sort of one of their test pilot programs. So they're rolling out some of their battery operated equipment and having us use it and see, giving them the results because they really want to work with us. So, but people, there are, just as an example, I'm sure it's true in the East Bay. I'm a little bit more familiar with the very strict rules that they have in Marin County. For example, Tiburon, Belvedere, Ross have very strict rules about sound, when you can blow, when you can't. And it's, I think, increasingly so in suburban areas. So, yeah.
Thank you for that, Suzanne. And so, Travis, my last question for you is about the sort of social behavioral engagement, of your company, and how does that really differentiate your facility from others? Because you've talked a lot about the sort of, the physical, properties, but again, a little bit more about the way that you really, again, I guess, engage and the behavioral engagement. What makes you guys a little bit different than maybe some of your competitors out there?
So, without getting too far into the mental health side of it, the mental health system tends to just try and stop behaviors, stop symptoms. The go-to is medication for people with mental health issues, and for us. And I'll largely for our organization as a whole, and I'll really specifically speak to our facility, we are looking at building quality of life and building meaningful, purposeful lives for our people that relate to paid gainful employment, that relate to education, that relate to creating relationships with other people, that the things that we would have in our lives that we would strive for, that we are trying to help develop that for our people. And so to us, I think how the sustainability piece factors into that is we've been able to use it, and again, in it being an all-around win, we've been able to use it to say, you are in this system that teaches you to be dependent. You are living in this system that says you should be taking medications and staying out of trouble. Instead, why don't we shift the focus towards how can we give back outside of ourselves? So we do a variety of different things for volunteer work that we get our people involved in, and in doing so, helping the environment is part of that. So teaching people that by helping the environment, I help myself, I feel good about myself. Not to mention the fact that our population, people below the poverty level, are much more likely to be impacted by environmental issues than people that are in wealthier areas. So we've been able to connect that, at least for a lot of our folks, to this is not just something that you can do, this is not just something that happens around you in this facility in which you live, this is something that you have a responsibility to be a part of. And in doing so, help people feel like they have a purpose and something meaningful, some connection to the outside community and to the planet.
Very different mindset. Thank you for that, Travis. So do we have time for a couple questions from the audience, or do we need to wrap up?
We need to wrap up. Yeah, so sorry.
Thank you all very much for your time. You guys were wonderful. Can we give them a hand?
Round of applause. Thank you, Alli. Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you, Travis. I'm impressed. As I mentioned earlier today, this forum that we've created here with the Sustainable Enterprise Conference is to literally give you guys the platform to shine. And the presentations that I saw and the work that you're doing, you are the pioneers and the leaders of doing this with intent. And you're not being regulated into this. You're doing it by choice, which is remarkable, okay? And that's the message we need to send to the business community, is that it can be done. You can have a successful business in a way that, we all benefit, including your employees and everybody else. Yes? Sure.
So I think in terms of messaging to people, and as we are advocates and as we talk about environmental practices, I think it's really easy for people to see environmentalists as nuisances. It's really easy for people to think, oh, here, this person is pushing their environmental beliefs on me again, here we go again. I think it's really important that we pay attention to how we give the messages that we give, that if we can shape it instead of, we are part of the cool group, we are part of the thoughtful, insightful group that focuses on environmental practices, that we don't see ourselves as victims in this, and that we see ourselves as finding solutions, and we change the way we give the messages. And I'm really big on acknowledging reality, that if we're not paying attention to today, people are worried about whether their healthcare is going to go away. They're worried about voter suppression. They're waking up wondering if some reckless narcissist is going to start a nuclear war. If we don't start with acknowledging reality as we're talking about environmental issues, people's attention is very divided. So we can acknowledge that and change the way we deliver the message.
Thank you once again. And thank you, Oscar. Thank you, Susan, for the work that you're doing. Really appreciate it.